Hey there, so today we have another review. This is a beer from Lagunitas. This is a little Sumpin Sumpin. This is actually literally one of the first beers that got me into craft beer. I want to say the first time I had it was in 2012, so it's been quite a while. It's been off and on trying to figure out this beer, especially trying to get it fresh. This is they call it a smooth, silky wheat IPA, but it's always been a wheated IPA. They actually, I believe, malt their own wheat for this beer specifically, 7.5%, so almost very much a double IPA. And then actually, this one's quite fresh. This is literally a month fresh. Part of it is, again, something to look out for when you live in Florida, is Publix and some of the other stores. Actually, it lines up not only Publix, which is a supermarket, but a bunch of other places. Some other supermarkets and places will do a discounted price. So it's pretty much in that like week or two, you just get a bunch of places doing like half price on 6 packs of craft beer, which is absolutely crazy. And obviously that product's super fresh, and I don't think I'm going to get it fresher than this. So if this beer is not good, then I'm going to give up on this guy. Then again, I did find him on the warm shelf, so maybe ideally I would have found him on the cold shelf, and it was about one of those discounted prices. But okay, we'll see how this guy turns out. This is one of those beers that I've just tried to purchase and try to revisit and really enjoy, and just never comes in fresh. Bear Republic Racer 5 for a while was the same thing. Founder Centennial was the same thing. Just beers that were just right in the window for me. We're just maybe within 2 months and just never really shined. And finally get a month fresh, which is pretty good. But yeah, I don't see much fresher coming from all the way from Chicago to here, right? Oh wow, crazy! They don't even say Chicago on here; they say Petaluma. So this came all the way from California and is a month fresh. That makes no sense. That can't be a Best Buy, right? That can't be a Best Buy. There's no way, right? Yeah, that can't be a Best Buy. Anyway, let's take this beer. Beer is very pale. Wow. Silky smooth, wheated IPA. The beer is actually almost like a straw color. It doesn't really look like IPA. Very pale. A little bit of chill haze on that. Quite nice to nose. Actually does, honestly, a little bit scary. It reminds you a little bit of the old school beer. These beers have a little bit of dankness to them. There's a touch of this kind of herbaceous quality, a little bit of gasoline, a little bit of weed dankiness, some of that kind of sweet, pale malt character. So it has this kind of light toasted bread, very light toasted bread, barely toasted bread thing. Yeah, a little bit of fresh yeastiness in there, and then there's a little bit of just kind of citrusy profile, which comes on with what do I want to call it? White grapefruit, a little bit of white grapefruit, white grape, but not like Sauvignon Blanc, not vial heavy. It's actually a pretty decent nose, and reminds you a little bit of this year, the Lagunitas beers, yeah. Okay. Wow, that's a little bit of a time machine. Wow. That's what this beer tastes like. Okay, so now I'm going to be on a hunt for this beer if I can find it dumb fresh. This is tasty. It's very drinkable. First off, this beer is dumb drinkable for 7.5. I'd really be worried because, again, 7.5, you're pretty much at the end of IPA. It's pretty much a double IPA at that point, right? This beer drinks nothing like that. Full blind, I would have guessed this beer was... Jesus. I think of myself as pretty good. I'm trying to, guess on IPAs, or just the beers in general's ABV. I would have guessed 6.5, 7.5. Wow. Wow, this beer's very drinkable. Wow. Jesus. So pretty much a double IPA, but it's only 52 IBUs. The beer is silky smooth up front. It follows with the nose with that really light kind of it's not also it's a lightly toasted pale bread, but it also has this light kind of crackery tone. It ends up a little bit supple, almost a little bit sweet, almost like a vanilla wafer kind of thing, right? But we're all in that kind of white yellow, kind of very pale malt character. Follows with the nose. A nice kind of just general kind of beer scene. Sorry, excuse me. Lingering green hop character that hits on the palates, has a little bit of juiciness to it, so I get a little bit of white grapefruit, a little bit of I want to call a little bit of white grape juice as well, a little bit of lightly tropical, leaning towards nice fresh pineapple flavors. Again, a little bit green and piney on the back end, but not really relying too much on that. This is a decently fruity IPA. Really nice kind of pale malt character. The bitterness is this nice solid medium. This doesn't taste like it's from West Coast. It really has a sort of updated profile to it. Reminds me a little bit of some more modern Pacific Northwest IPAs, but it's not as dank as those. So I'm trying to like place, like again, there's a lot of, it's crazy enough, but there's like locations to sort of what American IPA can do. Where do I place this guy? Jeez. You know what? I sort of maybe place it. Yeah, great example. A great boom. A great example would be Threes. Threes out of New York. Threes Brewing. They make some of these West Coast IPAs, but they're a little bit leaner and a little bit lighter, a little bit fruitier, right? They're not as packed in with bitterness. They call it a West Coast IPA, or they call it their version of IPA, whatever they want to call it. And it's not necessarily their hazy IPA, but just the regular, their take on IPAs. Some of them don't have that much crystal malt to them. Some of them a little bit less bitter, and some of them are a little bit more fruity. So it's like a neo West Coast IPA in that sort of range. I guess this beer sort of was ahead of its time for that reason. 2012 when I was reviewing this beer was a hot beer, and sort of makes sense because that's sort of what IPA has turned into. A little bit, a little bit lighter, a little bit paler, a little bit more fresh and juicy, a little bit less bitter, right? That wheat really seems to like give the beer a little bit of texture and body. Keeps the beer refreshing. For me, again, I always wish beer was a little bit more impactful, a little bit punchier, but this is pretty good. Like the hop flavor is certainly there. And again, nothing always has to be a hazy IPA. It doesn't always have to taste like pineapple juice or passion fruit mangoes. The hoppiness is certainly noticeable. The malt character is very light. This beer is just an absolute crusher of a beer. Man. And then, oh yeah, there you go. That's another cool analogy. It has this heady topper-esque kind of thing, where it has this kind of metallic, dank, chemically, which again, a bunch of off flavors that I mentioned, but very specifically to heady topper is in profile to their beer, and it follows here with this kind of like, just again, metallic, dank, it's just a very specific. If you guys have had heady topper Folkerbanger, there's this it's chemically turned all the way up, a little bit too gasoline, but it's sort of different, dank and enjoyable, and makes heady topper quite unique. And this beer certainly has that. This is like a heady topper light, even though they're like not far from ABV. Like this beer is 7.5, heady topper is 8. It goes to show you how much impact and flavor and deliciousness heady topper has, because it's more hoppy, it's more aromatic, more flavorful, more bitter, more body, more blah blah blah. But this is heady topper light, and there are, again, I've done almost 3,400 videos. There's almost no beers I can compare to heady topper for you guys, and tell you like, hey, if you can't go to Vermont, I recommend this beer because it tastes like heady topper. There's almost no beers like that. This one actually sort of does, and honestly, probably reminds you a little bit more Folkerbanger than heady topper, which is a huge compliment to the beer. This beer is absolutely tasty. It is bone dry. I honestly would be okay with a little bit more bitterness here, but it is so good. This is a very, very, very good beer. I'm honestly very impressed. This beer for me, again, I thought this beer just fell off like a cliff. I thought it was just absolute garbage. So very surprising. This beer for me gets a solid 96. I'd recommend this one. Get this fresh. It is very tasty. Cheers. Let me know if you've had a bit recent little something. If you can get it a month fresh, get it. If you can't get it like 2-3 months fresh, don't get it, because I've had issues with that warm shelf, blah blah. But if you get it cold shelf, maybe a month or two in, check it out. I mean, again, I've spent some money on this beer trying to review it for you guys, and I have not had a good little something in I don't know how many years. I can't remember the last time I said, hey, little something's really tasty. This is very, very tasty. So check this guy out again. Again, I thought I was off. I was off the bus on this beer. Don't avoid it. It's always old. It doesn't taste good anymore. It sucks. It's out of Chicago, blah blah. But it's out of California. That's what the can says. And it is freaking tasty. And they did a new can and all that. Honestly, I think the can sort of sucks. I miss like the font's pretty ugly, but and then I think, is that Comic Sans? Anyway, the font's absolutely atrocious. But I sort of like that lady that was on there, that classic lady on there with the bottles and the matte kind of finish on them. I don't know. It's a silver can. It looks pretty cool still. Who knows? 96. Cheers. Later.